In 1919, less than a year after the guns on the Western Front fell silent, a new art school opened in Germany. In 1926, it came here to a purpose-built building branded with its own distinctive logo. To the residents of Dessau, it was clear that something altogether new had sprung up on the edge of their town.
I actually think the Bauhaus was quite punk rock. It was quite a sort of punk, anarchic sort of sense of looking at something and turning it on its head. The Bauhaus was about bringing together sort of, groups of disciplines and sort of smashing them together and seeing what came out.
The Bauhaus was an art student's dream come true. An intoxicating mix of free love, avant-garde posing, and legendary parties. But there was a serious side too. The curriculum, devised by Bauhaus founder Walter Gropius, set out to break down the boundaries that since the Industrial Revolution had grown up between design and architecture, craftsmanship and mass production, designing and making. This was designed to be an education without frontiers.
You had fantastic painters, fantastic theater designers, potters, silversmiths, furniture designers, graphic designers. They all worked together. There was no separation. There was no division.
The architect, the construction worker, the brick worker, the carpet maker, the painter, the furniture maker, everybody. They want to open. They want to let the construction workers learn from the artists and the artists learn from the construction workers.
The Austrian architect Adolf Loos had been one of the first to try and hack back at its viney tendrils. In 1908, he railed against Art Nouveau in a diatribe entitled Ornament and Crime. For Loos, the stakes couldn't have been higher. The evolution of a culture, he proclaimed, is synonymous with the removal of ornament from utilitarian objects.
They thought that this ornament and over-decoration is a masquerade. And they want to give the objects a good quality without masquerade.
If you strip away all surface decoration from a product, so that all the energy, all the effort is going into the integrity of the fundamental object. The idea then is that using that approach, you can produce high-value objects in high numbers for reasonable cost. And that is the most democratic way to design and manufacture products.
They want to have the vision for a new kind of life, and also they want to educate the people to become a new human behavior for the 20th century, for a new future.
Every design revolution, from the Stone Age to the digital age, has its signature technology. For the modernists, it was this: tubular steel. Using techniques originally developed for making bicycle frames, tubular steel could be shaped into structures that were lighter than wood, but far stronger.
This was a new product, a new technique, and open up a completely new field of solutions.
We are now in the living room, and you can change this room for the night use into sleeping compartments. You bring the bed out, or pull the bed out of the built-in cupboard, and you can bring out the second bed for the couple here, and then you can close the sliding wall to separate the sleeping room of the child from the sleeping room of the parents.
Now that gave it immense freedom. It meant that both the architect and also the inhabitant of the house could shift the arrangement of the interior, the plan, to whatever they wanted to do. There's not much kind of running around the house. Everything's sort of kept very, very tight and close and efficient.
But freedom and flexibility came at a price. These were designs to live up to, rather than just live in.
He had these kind of slightly freakish views about communal living. He sort of had ideas that we should be living like students in a college or monks in a monastery, that actually our private space should be actually very, very small, and we should be sharing our communal space with lots of other people, and actually living like an artist, like he lived, actually.
In a sense, Le Corbusier never got over his potty training period emotionally as a Swiss designer, complete control freak, who wanted to tidy the world up.
The problem is that might have been fine for a few people, but it actually wasn't a solution for mass society. People actually liked their private space, actually. They liked to retreat as well as hang out on sun terraces.
I mean, modernism is always about enormous expectation, and provocation mixed with disappointment.
The term is correct, modernism. It is a poetic reflection of the modern age. So you bend a steel tube and you stretch some canvas and you've got a modern object, hence a functional object. But they weren't all functional. I have a lot of Bauhaus furniture in my house. It is, without exception, none of it is comfortable.
A lot of the modernists were prescribing how, not just how you would sit, but also how you would live. And that's what got us into trouble. Corbusier's original plan for Paris was to wipe out the old Paris and start new with these ridiculous towers with cars connecting everybody in between. It's a nightmare. This was his vision. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of cities started doing, and we are now repairing ourselves from this era. Corbusier's vision was very destructive. Now, he had some great designs for furniture and actually some interesting houses, and if he had only stuck to that, we would have all been better off.
The modernists had set out to break down the barriers that separated creative disciplines. But as the city-sized ambitions of Le Corbusier made clear, there is a fundamental distinction between architecture and design, as well as between architects and designers.
You've got to remember, architecture is big and heavy and slow and takes a lot of money to build. Design can respond much more quickly to changes in people's desires. It's basically more nimble, it's lighter, it's smaller. It's easier to do, frankly, than architecture. It's easier to change your chairs and your furniture than it is to change your building and a whole way of life and a whole environment.
But it's not just a difference in scale and speed. There's also a question of temperament.
We talk about designers as T-shaped beings, which means that you have a depth in something, you have a downstroke in something, a depth in craft, but a breadth and an empathy towards a lot of other disciplines. But I often think of architects as more maybe I-shaped. It's a depth in craft and less of a breadth and empathy.
In 1932, the Bauhaus closed its school in Dessau as the local branch of the Nazi Party flexed its brown-shirted muscle.